So the next item on the agenda is to talk about the origin, concept, and practice of Kwanzaa. So many of you already know some of this, but I'll go over it again and maybe we'll have a discussion again. But of course, Kwanzaa was founded back in 1966 by Maulana Karenga. He was born in Eastern Shore of Maryland, I think in 1939, I think. Yeah, in 1939. He's written a couple of books about the founding of Kwanzaa. This is one. This is the first one he put together, and there's another one there that's circa, I think that's circa 1995, I think, or 98, I think, right? That's a thicker version, but every few years, yeah, he puts out a bigger version of the book. But oh yeah, this one, right?
This one,
yes,
you're right, 97, I think.
Okay.
Incidentally, while I'm looking at this cover, I want all of you next year go buy some Kwanzaa stamps. They started Kwanzaa stamps in like 97.
That's all I use.
And in recent years, I've gone around the post office, they didn't have any there. I've torn them off.
I do too when they
So go buy some.
I do that all.
Buy the stamps. If you don't, pretty soon they won't exist.
They won't.
Yeah, if anybody can think about it, ask a question about how we got Kwanzaa stamps. So there was a controversy about it, and I can tell you how we did it. So these are versions of Dr. Maulana Karenga's book on the founding of Kwanzaa. He talks about how they founded Kwanzaa in Los Angeles in 1966. It was founded by the US organization. Us as opposed to them is how they define themselves. Us as opposed to those who were not us. So, it was founded as part of the black movement of the 1960s. And he always says that he's a 60s man. He came out of the 1960s, and that he is a black nationalist. Now that is something today that might scare the socks off of people when you say you're a black nationalist. What is a black nationalist? There are all kinds of people who have ideas about what a black nationalist is, but Maulana Karenga says that in fact, the way he defines it is that it is the concept and conviction that we are a distinct people with a distinct historical personality. And therefore, we should organize ourselves around our distinction. So we have a common destiny as a people. And these are statements that really are hard to controvert. We are a distinct people. Everybody thinks so. We think we are. Some people, they're individuals that say, well, I'm not really black, I'm a human being. Everybody seems to think we are, all right? We're distinct people with a distinct historical personality. That's why you can have a course in African history or African American history, because we have a distinct history.
Amen.
And we come from a continent that has a distinct culture. A distinct culture. There are lots of different kinds of Africans on the continent of Africa, lots of different kinds of African people in the Caribbean, but there's a thread that runs through those cultures that we recognize as being distinctively ours, that makes us a distinct people. That even if we weren't a similar color, because there's lots of colors of us, if we weren't a similar color, if we weren't black people, we would still have these distinct personality traits and a distinct history and a distinct origin. So that's what he means by black nationalism. And so it was on the concept of Maulana's definition of black nationalism that Kwanzaa was founded, as a holiday that strives to bring us together as a people around 7 principles. Not just together to party, or together to eat, or together to open presents, or whatever. We're together. Kwanzaa seeks to bring us together around 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba, or 7 principles in Kiswahili. And those principles are Umoja, which means unity, to strive for and to maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Kujichagulia, self-determination, to define ourselves, name ourselves, and speak for ourselves instead of being defined and spoken for by others. Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility. It means that we should do always as much as we can to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve those together. Ujamaa, which means cooperative economics. That's the fourth principle. It means to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit together from them. Nia is the fifth principle. It means to make as our collective vocation the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Kuumba, which is creativity. It means to build, clean up. It means to make our communities more beautiful and beneficial than they were before we inherited them. And the last one is Imani, which means, in this case, faith. It means that we should believe and with all our hearts, no matter what deities you believe in or don't believe in. We should believe with all our hearts in our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. We should believe in those people who are for us, who are trying to help us. We should have faith in each other. That's what it's about. So those are the 7 principles, and those principles are celebrated during Kwanzaa. And each Kwanzaa has 7 symbols. The first symbol is this straw mat. It's called what? Who knows? Mkeka, right. Straw mat, it represents our foundation upon which everything else rests. On the Mkeka is Kinara, right, Kinara. It represents the common stalk from which we all sprang, which is the continent of Africa. In the Kinara are 7 candles, and they represent what? The 7 principles, right, and they're red, black, and green. Now, I had a sister tell me, in all sincerity, that when she saw a red, black, and green bracelet around my wrist, that she thought it stood for Libya or one of those revolutionary groups in the Middle East. I said, no, this is the red, black, and green came to us by way of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who held a convention of the Negro peoples of the world in August of 1920 in Madison Square Garden. It was a 5-day convention, and at the end he unfurled the red, black, and green. Red stands for struggle. It doesn't mean just blood. It means struggle. It means activity. Red is the most vibrant color in the spectrum. So it means we have to do something. We have to do something to be free. Green stands for not land originally. It was for youth. Garvey said it stood for youth, our sons and daughters and those who follow us, and the example we have to set for them. Black stands for the people, that's us. As Garvey said, 400 million back of us, back of it, whose destiny depends on it, the red, black, and green of it. So, old flag of mine. So, black stands for, on this day, we light this black candle in the middle, which represents unity. Well, I guess maybe I'll explain the rest of the symbols, and then we'll light it. Maybe we can get some volunteers to light it. There's some youth here. They can do it. Okay. All right. So on the mat, on the mkeka, is the matunde, or the fruit. And the fruit represents the things that we produced over the course of the year that are sweet and good. Those things that are good. And I guess we could have some rotten fruit on the table, the rest of the stuff we messed up, but we don't do that. We only deal with the fresh, good things, So we want to remember those, and we want to see how we can replicate those. Because Maulana was inspired when he created Kwanzaa, and this is something you shouldn't be ashamed of. I've heard people say, Kwanzaa is a made-up holiday. I don't want to celebrate that. That's made up. Guess what?
Every holiday is made up.
Hey, right, so It's hilarious in a way. But, all right, so Kwanzaa was created by Maulana Karenga. He thought about it. He said, we need a holiday to bring us together. You know, something that has more meaning than what we've been used to. And so that has a specific meaning for us. So the fruit represents, you know, what we've done good over the course of the year that we can replicate next year, based on, as I was saying, he studied African festivals, and Kwanzaa is not modeled off any specific African festival, but it's inspired by a lot of festivals where, because African people are agrarian and work the land, they're inspired by harvest festivals. So at the end of the year, a lot of African people, whether they're Shona or whether they're Akan people or whether they're in South Africa, they're Osa. All right, there you go. She has to pronounce it right. Do it again, do it again. All right, all right. Or Zulu, I can say that one. Then they have a festival when they bring in the harvest, and they dance, and they pour libation, they play drums, they talk about what they're going to do next year, and that's what Kwanzaa was inspired by. But Kwanzaa is an African American holiday in the sense that it was created here. So some people say, well, I wouldn't celebrate Kwanzaa because it's not directly from Africa. You know, there are people that say that. I've heard that said. In fact, there was a brother who came into the Institute for Positive Education in Chicago when we were conducting a Kwanzaa celebration next door. He came into the bookstore and he knocked on the door, and I happened to be on that side, and I opened the door, and he said, I'm from Ghana. He said, you guys are celebrating Kwanzaa. We don't do that in Ghana. I said, I know. Because it was created here. I said, we welcome you to come over and join us. You know, but it's a holiday that he's welcome to celebrate because it's for all African people. It's a Pan-African holiday in scope. So whether you're in the Caribbean, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in London, you know, or in Paris or wherever, and you're black, you're welcome to celebrate Kwanzaa. In fact, it's even gotten away from the intention of Kwanzaa, and now I've heard that there's a group of Navajo that celebrate Kwanzaa out in the West now. And that was 20 years ago, I heard that story. But a lot of people like the principles. But also on the table are zawadi, which are the gifts. And I have here some children's books. Feel free to look through them. I bought these at the library book sale, $1. You know, there's a lot of materials published about Kwanzaa, but I hope you can still find it in the library, because the library is divesting themselves of this material as fast as they can, apparently, because every year when I go, you can buy tons of black children's books for $1 if you go on the right day. So this is the library book sale. They used to hold it at Hair Arena, yeah. Now it's at Fairgrounds, yeah, which is getting ready to close too, so I don't know where they're going to hold it next. But at any rate, so the gifts are given to encourage children to explore who they are as an African person, to explore who they are as a person. You know, we encourage children to make something, create something during Kwanzaa, to do something, you know, to commemorate who they are and reinforce who they are. And Kwanzaa is a ritual, a set of rituals. And a ritual is nothing more than a reinforcing gesture that you do. Whether you're, I mean, and it's the same thing for a Christian ritual, or a Jewish ritual, or a Muslim ritual. A ritual is something that's done to reinforce what you believe or you're about. And it's done in politics. The Democratic convention or Republican convention, they shower the place with red balloons and red, white, and blue balloons and streamers and stuff. That's to reinforce who they are. Ohio State Buckeyes, they get drunk tear down the goalposts, to reinforce who they are, right? And so that's who they're trying to, they're modeling their behavior. So what we do during Kwanzaa is that we talk about what these principles are, and we talk about all the concepts these symbols represent, and we talk about our ancestors, and we pour a libation, we call their names. All this reinforces who we are. And so that's that's something about the origin and concept of Kwanzaa, and there'll be time for questions. Oh yeah, we need children to, I missed a symbol. Yeah, that's terrible. And I've got 2 children too. And children, the bunzi, or the muhindi, the corn, represents our immortality, represents our children, and the way we can bring more people into the world. Like every kernel of corn on here can produce another cob of corn, another stalk of corn, of which there are many stalks. And so we have the ability to procreate, and so we're going to make a lot of children. All of you, if you haven't done it already, you're going to make some. And so the question is, the question is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with these children? You were going to make them, so let's give them something good to do. Let's give them a good example. Let's give them a good role model. Let's give them good training. Let's give them a good education. That's what the corn represents, this responsibility that we have to future generations. When I was taught libation, and Hodari was taught by the same person, we were taught to pour a libation to those who are waiting to be born. That's the last one. It's not just for those who are gone. Libation is poured for us, the living, and it's also poured for those who are waiting to be born. Those who are waiting to be born, are coming into the world. So, so we have to be conscious of them every day. And so, so we need a volunteer to light the candle, the black candle. There's one. All right. Step forward, please. And what is your name?
Ashley.
Okay. Just one name?
Ashley Bruton.
All right. Thank you, Sante. I didn't even tell my name. But I'm Larry Crow. Kwaku Larry Crow. Any rate, okay, if I could have you light, here's a lighter. I know you can do this. So Ashley is lighting the first candle, which represents
Unity.
Yes, that's right. And that the Kiswahili term for it is
Umoja.
yes, right. Okay, Sante Sana, give her a big hand. Yeah. So when we're in a community setting, and Kwanzaa when Kwanzaa was created, it was, the vision was that Kwanzaa would be done in a home, that you would do it at home. But nowadays, everybody's at a big event, even until recently, that's where it's been like that for a long time now. When I got to Chicago, every night of Kwanzaa was celebrated by a different group. And so you go across town to Baba Hannibal Afrique's place, the Shula Yawatoto, you celebrate Kwanzaa there. Kuji Chagalia there, you'd celebrate Umoja with another group at the Center for Inner City Studies. You'd celebrate the Ujamaa market at the Institute for Positive Education. And now it's got to the point where they have a huge celebration in the community colleges now. Either Malcolm X or Kennedy King College, and they have it all week. They start at noon, they go all day to 9 o'clock at night. Everybody shows up, and it's gotten so big there that the politicians even show up. Harold Washington came to our Kwanzaa at the Institute for Positive Education when he was running for mayor. Showed up, I have a picture of him speaking next to the Kanara, to the crowd. And of course, he was elected. But the original intent was a small gathering, and to be if not at home, in a small gathering of people. And I'm glad to see so many people out here today. I thought it would be smaller, but there's a big turnout. So, but what we're still going to try to do is discuss what unity means and why we need unity. So we'll do it in a form of questions and answers. People have questions or they have a statement they want to make. Come up and I'll let you make it, but I won't let go of the microphone. Okay, so that's for the benefit of others. Yeah.
But, you know, I was going to say something. You know, it seems like on every level of our being, we absolutely have to unify. I mean, in terms of politics, in terms of the food deserts that we have in our community. I mean, this is a circle of completeness right here. Oh.
He said he won't part with the mic.
About far to go.
No, I didn't think it. Oh. What I was saying is that we're in a circle of completeness, even by the way that we're situated here, and that we don't accomplish anything other than by solidifying and unifying, even in terms of what happened down in Alabama with Roy Moore, him not being elected. I mean, even in terms of what's going on right now in the Senate, and in terms of the Obamacare, the ACA. I mean, we're unified here because we thirst for togetherness. We thirst for one another. There is a Zulu saying that says, Sawabono, which means I see you, I am here. And that is very important to how we identify ourselves and know our self-concept.
Amen. So unity, you know, Donald Trump hired Omarosa Manigault because he thought that she knew us, because she could talk to us. You know, I mean, I was sharing with Baba Fred earlier. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call him Baba. I recently came across a book. A friend of mine kind of had an estate sale, you know, and I came across a book called the International Book of Uncle Tom's. It's about, I don't know if Brother Steve has seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I got one through this estate sale, so I ordered another one. It cost me about $10. But it's an interesting book. It's well written, but the concept, and he explains the concept of Uncle Tom. He gives examples. But in a discussion I had with a friend on the phone, we were discussing, he was saying like, well, a lot of people that this brother names did do something that seems to us to be Thomish at one time or another. And the worst instance of Thomism is in the book, you know. And it seems to be documented. I mean, you know. But when you think about it, who amongst us has not done something that the rest of us won't agree with, you know? I mean, people have their moments, you know? Because one of the people that were mentioned was Harry Belafonte. And I can't remember exactly the circumstance under which he mentioned Harry Belafonte. But Harry Belafonte was also one of the prime supporters of Dr. King, with money. He put money, he put his time on the line, he went to jail, you know. So when you think about that, I mean, he was in town here about 5 years ago. He spoke at Wright State. You know, he spoke, you know, in public about how bad George Bush was, and you know, people criticizing. In fact, the backlash was such that when Coretta Scott King passed away, her children were afraid to let Harry Belafonte share the rostrum with George Bush. You know, but this is somebody that another brother says is Uncle Tom. You know, but so as you see, there's a, you know, it's a complicated situation. Yes, sir.
I think part of unity is like you were talking about that shared identity, which brings solidarity. But I also think that what unity isn't is everybody thinking the same. You know, like I think if we have a shared identity and knowing that people have different viewpoints and this, that, and other, but we have a common understanding of our shared humanity or our shared intention of moving our community forward, then that helps, you know, like Karinga talks about operational unity, right? And so it's like how we create these fronts where different organizations, different ways of going about it are all coming together in a way that's moving forward, but it's not everybody thinking the same or having like 10,000 years of debates about like, you know, what is the best, this, that, and other, you know what I mean? But how do we really like move forward with what we have in this room right now? I mean, this room is packed out, right? We got all types of gifts and talents, representatives from different organizations, you know what I mean? Like how do we use this to move forward? You know what I mean? And to me, that's kind of what unity is, like Ubuntu, right? That when I see you, I see myself, right? And so I think we got challenged the underlying assumption of individuality, right? And that like if we're individuals, then it's like these people do this, these people do that, but I don't see like my brother or sister struggle as my struggle, right? But that shared identity, like yo, what's happening to you, what's happening to me as well, right? And vice versa, and how then we can move forward from that.
Sante, yeah, he's absolutely right. Maulana Karenga states in the first book, and then I think the subsequent books, that when he's talking about Umoja, he's not talking about uniformity, he's talking about operational unity. So, right, brother.
I don't think it'll reach that far.
Yeah.
Forgive me for being late. So. Yes, okay, thanks. Yes, sister.
You'll be fine a goat.
I got one in the car. Okay. I think brother hit on it that unity is probably the most complex thing. I mean, you think about democracy and what it really means, and I'm talking about in terms of the concept. And so you kind of have to have what's at the point, if I may sit this here, what's at the point to have unity, what could we all agree on? I'd like to suggest white supremacy is the bane of humanity. That I think the concept of white supremacy is the problem. It was created in this nation. As much as we want to talk about Europe, Europe was more about nations, Spain, Germany, etc. White supremacy evolved here. And that's one of the studies I've done for a while. Lately has been like the 1600s. Up until then, you come over here, you were Irish, German, you would be, you know, from South Africa, North Africa, East Africa, West Africa. Everything was divided in nations, even in this country, until after, what did they call that, Bacon's Rebellion. At that point, it came out of that, not because of it, but came out of that the concept of white. So you could come over here from Spain, France, and suddenly Ireland, especially Ireland and Scotland, who were the hated groups and the poor ones in Europe, they could come over here and suddenly they're mentally equal, though they didn't get any money. And that stuff is still going on now. Maybe if we could unify about fighting against the concept of white supremacy, we might be able to find a point of unity. So we aren't arguing about whether it's Islam or Christianity or capitalism, socialism. The number one problem in the world right now, and from here it spread to the world. South Africa didn't have that issue until it came from here. You know, it was created here. So my suggestion that maybe, one, we not be afraid to talk about white supremacy, because that seems to be a problem. We seem to go all around it, and you know, and then we get back in the corner thinking white supremacy is an individual. It's a concept. It's a con game on most of the people that are called white anyway. They don't get a nickel. You know, the most they can get is support the troops and pat on the back, and they think that they're in the mix. You know, they fallen for that game way back when they were forced to be on slave patrol. You know, you ain't in that game for real, but they've been played that way. So that was my suggestion. I think I talked to my daughters. I said, you know what? Most of my family can't wait till Kuumba. Creativity, the music, and the art form that is necessary for our energy. But this is probably the most important and the most complex day. is unity. And so as much as I was late and struggled to get here, I was determined to be here on this day with y'all.
What's your name?
Victor.
All right, Brother Victor. Okay, Brother Steve.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about it from, I guess, a spiritual standpoint. You know, the Bible says from one seed came all human beings. Amen. And when we think about that, we have to begin as black people, begin to truly see each other as brothers and sisters. Amen. On a spiritual sense. We may, as my brother Tyrone always used to say, my brother from another mother. However, spiritually, we are all one. Now, the Bible says, let us make man. And the Quran uses we when referring to God creating things. Now, this is amazing. What we have to begin to understand is a concept called synergy. Now, let me read this concept. I believe, from the top of my head, it is the sum of the part, something about the sum of the parts being greater than the whole, something like that. But this says synergy. Broadly, it means combined action or operation. A mutual advantageous conjunction or capability of distinct business participants or elements. In other words, synergy is that when we all combine our actions into one focused direction, can you imagine? Because to wrap it all up, think about this. Here we are in Dayton. We're about 60, 70,000 here. The population may be shrinking a little bit. However, we are 41% of the population here in Dayton. However, because we don't have the same focused mindset, our community looks fragmented. It looks destroyed. It looks lifeless. When we think about life, when we look at the human body and the blood circulating through the human body, right? You know that a person is alive because blood is flowing through the body. Well, in a capitalistic system, blood is equated to money. But money doesn't flow in our community. So without us patronizing each other, without us having an entrepreneurial mindset and building businesses, as my brother said, to leave something for generations to come, we have to begin to see that we need to pull our resources, come together, and do something for self. We need to go ahead, as Brother Victor said, is to separate. We don't have to separate, go to Africa or something, but we can use the model of the Chinese. I go to Philadelphia, I go to New York, guess what they got? Chinatowns. When you go in Chinatowns, they got Chinese writing on the street signs. I went into a Chinese shop. He was reading a newspaper with Chinese writing. We just got to support our own. We got to support our black newspapers, our black businesses, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So let's go into the new year with the mindset that when we see our brothers and sisters, don't mean mug them. You know what I mean? That is spiritually your brother, sister. And you know, I'll be in a large crowd and I'll see a brother or a sister, all white people, right? I see a brother and a sister and I'm going to acknowledge them. That's just me.
Right, amen.
And they looking all crazy and I'm thinking to myself, if something broke out, Negro, you're going to look for me and I'm going to look for you. You got to get it right. So thank you, brother. Excuse me, I didn't mean to slip like that. You all know what I'm talking about.
That's exactly right.
So we have a couple more minutes. And Sister Monica. now you have to watch what you say, so
I just wanted to say, me and Monica do look alike, but my name is Jamika. But Monica is a good friend of mine. It's okay, we all don't. I just wanted to read, to go back to the question of unity. How do we unify? It says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. African proverb, unity. So when I was thinking back to what Amaha said, how do we do this? It is difficult, I think, when you have the bondage in your mind about your perception of yourself and what your purpose is. Being a believer since the age of 17, I learned very quickly that there are many members, but everybody has their role according to the Word of God. And so I have my gifts, you have your gifts, you have your gifts. I think sometimes where we fail to unify is when people operating outside of their gifts. And instead of just going to the person with the gift, you know, we think, oh, well, we can do this ourselves. It's like, no, you can't. That's not your gift. And we need to learn to be in our lane. I mean, I know very well what my gifts are. I study spiritual gifts. So I wanted to get that understanding, and all that I'm getting, get an understanding. So if you don't know what your gifts are, the key is to find out what your gifts are, not talents, because there's difference between spiritual gifts and talents. What is your ministry? What is your purpose? And then operate in that. There's room for everybody. When you go back to the Bible and you see when they wanted to build a temple up to God, they were all of one mind. Everybody had their gifts. You had the builders, you had the orchestrators, you had the people who did the blueprint, you had the people who used the strength, you had people who used, you know, everybody had their gift, and they were successful because they were of the same mindset, but everybody was operating in their gift before their languages was confused, but that's a whole nother Bible study. So we just need to learn to operate in our gifts, and if you don't know what your gifts are, find out what your gifts are. Find out what your talents are, what your strengths are, and it's okay to be like, you know, if somebody came to me and said, Jamika, we want you to, you know, do a longest table on the west side. I'm going to say, no, that's not my gift. I'm going to go to the longest table, and I'm going to ask the experts, how do you do this? Show me what you've done. What are the resources? And then you get the knowledge and you execute. So it's just understanding what are your gifts. Just because somebody comes to you and say that you should do this, that, and the other, if you know that's not your gift, pass it on to somebody and collaborate with people whose gift those are. And I think we go wrong in our community. We have all these, you know, nonprofits that spring up. You know, Neighborhoods Over Politics is one. And when we sprung up, people said, well, there's so many nonprofits out there. Why do we need another one? Because I'm about effective nonprofits, people who are actually doing and not just collecting money and saying. So that's the difference. And you have a lot of restaurants, but how many are serving healthy food and doing it in a professional manner? So it's just understanding what the gifts and talents are. And if I identify with knowing Amaha, what is your major again? I'm not touching sociology. I'm going to go to Amaha and say, hey, this is his gift. He's trained in this, so I'm going to go to this brother specifically for that. Tiffany, nurse practitioner. I'm not going to try to be a nurse. That's not my gift. I haven't been trained in that. So I think it's just as simple as that, is utilizing Mama Nazipo, our professional photographer. I mean, I'm not going to try to take pictures. I know Mama Nazipo got it on lockdown. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so everybody, we all have gifts, and it's really getting to know each other, understanding what our gifts and talents are, and then utilizing those to unify and bring our community together. That's what it's about, I believe.
I apologize for calling you Monica. This is Jamika. But Monica's a good sister too. Is she here? She should be here. At any rate, last story and a book recommendation, and then a acknowledgement. Last story is that there was a brother in Hope. Somebody. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, well, we were just about to.
No.
I just say, as far as unity, I agree with everything the brothers and sisters were saying, and I think the system's been designed. The system's been designed to put us under from the beginning. Ever since they got all the money out of us doing slavery, and then disenfranchised us and let us out here like some wild dogs. But I think the number one thing with unity is love. We've got to find that self-love. We've got to find that self-love before we love another. We've been designed to hate each other, and due to our recent dilemma, this crack era, that we're still trying to recuperate it off, which really took away our love altogether. You know, he's talking about mean faces and mugging. Right. We're still trying to recuperate off that crack thing. And the juveniles that we have nowadays, all high-tech and into their cell phones, more attention with that, they have the resources to get all the history in the world that they can possibly ever consume. But instead, they won't take that. Because I think that crack era just really messed us up. And we haven't recuperated from that. And I think we lost 2 generations with that crack era. And now we've got the ADD, ADHD, hypertension, all this, and no respect for foe or anything else. But you have to learn your history. You have to learn your history. You have to love yourself. If you can't love yourself, how can you love me? How can we be unity? You can't have unity without love. Then, when you find out what love is, then we get the spiritual aspect involved. But it starts with the homes. If the mother and the fathers and the sisters and the brothers and the aunts, matter of fact, grandma now, she's taking care of 5 and 6 other children's children. You know, that type of situation, we're blowing it all up. Maybe this right here might spark some of these young people, because people like Larry and some of the other people have spoken, our time is almost up. Some of you going to have to pick up something. If you don't pick up something, we're going to be destroyed out here.
Amen.
So every night this week we're celebrating Kwanzaa here, and I would like to especially thank Robert Jones in the back. Raise your hand. Elder Robert Jones, for the use of this space, and the new Hope Lutheran Church. So with that, the formal portion of the program, unless there's another announcement, the formal portion of this program is closed. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.